morning to the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Craig Burley and Stevie Nicol. We also welcome back from his holiday, Gab Marcotti is with us. He'll be telling us all about Neymar a little later on. But we start at Old Trafford. Manchester United beating Chelsea by 4-0. Look at it, Craig. How'd this happen?
Gab coming back from his holidays. Another one in his holidays. I thought they were two evenly matched sides going into the game because I think both have got the problems. But I've said all along, Chelsea's back line, no David Luiz now. We're not always his biggest fan, but he's an experienced player. He's won medals. He's managed to get them over the line. That back line creaked and it struggled, and in front of them, no protection. So, listen, one of the facets that they have to get sorted quick is get Kanté fully fit and get him back, trying to protect that back four. So, some decent stuff going forward early on from Chelsea, and then just completely got taken apart in the second half.
Everything you boys had highlighted as their problem going into the start of the season was revealed in that 90-minute window, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, the first thing we all picked on is how are they going to score a goal? And after this game, we're still asking, how are they going to score a goal? Because as good and as tidy and exciting as they were in the middle of the field going forward, when they got to the final third, let's be honest, they didn't look like scoring. The couple of times they hit the woodwork was through bad defending, in my opinion, as opposed to what they were doing. So, number one, where's the goals coming? But then after that, you have to defend behind the ball. You know, when you're going forward, whoever's playing at the back, and definitely in the middle of the park, has to make sure that when the ball's turned over, there are not huge holes everywhere. And if you're going to play against Manchester United and leave huge holes with the pace that they've got going forward, then guess what's going to happen? And it did.
Gab, you kept telling us all summer, don't be so negative about Chelsea. They've got big players coming back from loan. Everything's going to be fine. Are you sticking to your guns?
Well, look, I mean, first of all, as Lampard himself pointed out after the game, some of those big players weren't there, right? Conte not fit to start. Obviously, Loftus-Cheek, Hudson-Odoi still out. But, you know, I look at this, I didn't see too much difference between the two teams in the first half. This is the nature of football. You hit the woodwork twice in the first half. You give up a stupid penalty. They almost gifted them a goal earlier, Zuma as well. And then in the second half, I agree with what Stevie said. They're too ragged and they didn't defend well and they were exposed on the counterattack. But interestingly, two of the second and third goal, those were individual mistakes, not by a youngster, but by Azpilicueta, who we're used to saying is one of their best defenders. Things will improve, I think, when Rudiger comes back. But, yeah, there's obviously a lot of work to do.
I don't think there's any surprise. I mean, all right, OK.
The scoreline's a surprise.
Sorry, I just meant in a generalisation. The scoreline is extremely disappointing if you're a Chelsea fan or Frank Lampard or a player, because you've kind of buckled in that second half, and as Gab said, people made mistakes. But I think when you look at it, when we looked at it on Friday and we put the teams up, both teams, to be fair, were like, wow. And, you know, I think United were just the team that took more of an advantage of it, with a bit more quality. And I'm not going to slaughter young players, but Tammy Abrahams he's been out on loan a couple of times, last year at Villa, and maybe that's the way Frank Lampard's going to go. Mason Mount as well, and maybe one or two others. But it's just going to make for a tough season. It's just going to make for an absolutely tough season for them. And if Chelsea are ready for that, then fine. But because there's going to be a lot of blood spilled along the season for them. There's going to be a lot of pain, I think. And I said on Friday's show, people are going to go at these teams, and I include Man United in that. Other teams in the Premier League are not going to treat these two like City and Liverpool. They're going to go after them because they know they can get at them. And the other side, just briefly, is United. I've seen already, well, this is mood for optimism. You know, it's a great result and a great start, but let's not get away from ourselves. They've beaten a Chelsea side that were pretty poor, but this United side are again average by their standards.
In what sense? In what particularly highlighted that you saw today?
Well, not too much today. Well, I tell you what, early on today, their ball retention was poor. And they were leaving an awful lot of big gaps that Chelsea, with the Hazards in the team, would have taken advantage. They didn't. The things I liked about them, the youngster got a good debut, Wan-Bissaka. Maguire's accomplished at the back now. He's he's played in the World Cup semi-finals. He's an accomplished player. But again, he's playing against a youngster. Pogba, again, he gave the ball away, then he did some good things, then he gave the ball away.
Yeah.
That's kind of where he is. So
I just spoke about Chelsea not defending behind the ball. Manchester United were guilty of the very same thing. You know, they were, for the first 20, until the first goal, Chelsea were outplaying Manchester United at home for fun. Manchester United, for me, went in the game till the first goal. And when I say, particularly the first half, both sides were so desperate to get forward that both sides left big holes all over the place. And Manchester United, if they do that against a team that has a far potent attacking force, they're going to be under severe pressure. They're going to be losing goals.
But as a player, it's great to come in. You know, where are we now? Lost track. So you come. I presume they're training Monday. They don't get days off now. So it's great to come in after the first weekend.
Smiles.
You're at home.
Yeah,
You've not had a great transfer window. You've had a big signing in Maguire. You've brought in the youngster Daniel James, the Welsh international.
Yeah. Dream debut, obviously.
He gets a great debut. The game just opened up. They got 4 goals. They kept a clean sheet. David De Gea wasn't really that, well, you say that, not that busy. They hit the woodwork twice. So all in all, from United, it couldn't have been any better from United's perspective. We didn't expect them to dominate the game like a City or a Liverpool would dominate the game. So we never thought that would happen. But in terms of taking their chances and then the mistakes from Zuma, particularly the first one, the penalty, then United could do no more.
You mentioned Pogba. Just explain to me, as an ex-pro, how you see Pogba, because almost as a fan or someone just watching the game, you kind of think, where is he for most of it? And then all of a sudden, that ball through to Rashford, absolute world class, of course, to set up his second goal. But shouldn't he be doing that more often, or is that just naive from like a fan's point?
Are we on the August? What are we now? What date is today? August 10th?
August 10th.
August 10th or 11th, whatever it is, and we're on the Pogba.
Just because I think it's just interesting. Do you know what I mean? Just why don't we see more of that from him?
Because this is just a personal opinion. I think Pogba thinks he should be A, playing somewhere else, and B, playing with better players. And I think there is a sense of frustration. You call it maybe arrogance, and frustration about that as well.
But,
and so you only see it. You see it now and again, but you know, so when it's good, and when it's not, he gave the ball away quite a lot. But you know, first game of the season.
I want him on my team.
I don't not want him on my team.
Exactly. You know what he's capable of. The problem right now is figuring, is he not producing as consistently as we want because of him, or is it because of the team he's playing in? That's the conundrum I have.
Gab?
No, look, I mean, I think the reality is he's playing in a midfield with McTominay and Pereira, and I'm not having a go with them. They're younger players. They're going to develop, but this is a totally new midfield. It's a totally new front three in terms of the way they lined up with Lingard, Martial through the middle, and he was asked to play in that 2 in front of the back 4, which he did with France on what was a really counter-attacking France. So I mean, I think to some degree you got to cut him a tiny bit of slack there. I think Jose Mourinho, though, who was speaking on television here, made a good point, which is, as far as United are concerned, yeah, they excel at counterattacking, but against a team that sits and stays compact, who's going to unlock them? Can these strikers go and unlock them, unlock the opposing defense, find a way through the way perhaps Lukaku could have, who's got a different body type? And I think that's maybe, where we're going to see a different sort of Pogba, where he sees more of the ball against a team that actually sits and sort of invites United forward.
Well, if you think back actually to Gab's point there about the game that I think it was early on in Solskjaer's tenure last year, was at Wembley against Tottenham, where Tottenham were pushing and we saw that front line with the pace in behind. That's right up their street. But, as much as you can criticise Lukaku, he did have a physical presence when teams sat deep and you could throw himself about in the box. They haven't quite got that at the moment, and they've gone a different route, and I'm sure it'll have some success for them. I just think, for me, it's a great start for United, but I think good teams and even mediocre teams in the Premier League will give them a game, and that stands for Chelsea.
Lingard and Martial don't help Pogba for me. You know, because we're expecting Pogba to yes, do all the dirty stuff in the middle of the park, but we expect him to get forward as well. Martial and Lingard, for me, are far too inconsistent and lose the ball too many times. So if you're a guy who's trying to make runs into the box and try and join in, and two of the three strikers are continually, or forget that, he's thinking, are they keeping it or not? Because if he knows they're keeping it, he can make all those runs, and he can make those runs all day. But if he's having to think twice, well, do I go? Because if I go and he loses it again, there's a big hole left. So that's another problem he has to figure out.
The general consensus between everyone was that the top three would be City, Liverpool and Spurs. Did you see enough from United today to suggest that they can close the gap on those?
No.
They just beat Chelsea 4-0.
Yeah, Chelsea are a poor squad at the moment. I've got Chelsea in 6. I know people have got them further down than that.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I think it's nothing else to me than a great start. It wasn't a great performance. They took advantage of Chelsea's inadequacies. I can't even say the word.
No, that's all right.
And no, I don't change anything. I don't have United in the top 4. Not even off the back of that.
We said on Friday, I believe, that this is a strange game. We've got Man United, Chelsea. Normally you're thinking, wow, you had two giants battling it out. And the fact that you're saying, well, does that make United, they're capable of kicking that top 3? Mm-hmm. Really? You can't look at this game and try and draw a parallel with that, because Chelsea was so poor, and actually Manchester United, as far as winning 4-0 was concerned, weren't particularly brilliant. Let's be honest.
I look at Maguire, who's going to have to marshal that back line, which he's capable of doing now at this tenure in his career. But then I look at the front 3 and I think very talented, but I'm betting now they're going to be inconsistent.
Right.
And then I look at the midfield and I think that's not going to dominate all the games in there. And I think there's where a lot of the problems are going to lie, particularly in the middle of the park. United
win 4-0 and FC still find a way to be negative about them. It's just typical us.
It's not not negative. Yeah, you can't judge a team on the opposition all the time.
Meanwhile, earlier today we saw Arsenal beat Newcastle by 1-0. A surprise starting 11 from Unai Emery. We saw Pepe on the bench, Lacazette as well. In the end, Aubameyang was the difference, wasn't he, Stevie? Is that quality goal?
I guess, again, listen, the only thing we know is the guy's going to score goals if he's given the opportunity. He could have had more than just the one today. But this was... I think we have to give Arsenal credit. We for the last couple of seasons, we've been giving them a lot of stick about away from home, struggling at places like Newcastle. And again, Newcastle weren't particularly brilliant. But that's not down to Arsenal. They got the 3 points, they won away from home, they kept a clean sheet, job done.
Meanwhile, Leicester and Wolves are expecting to give us a lot of attacking excitement this season. 0-0. It finished between the two sides. Wolves having a goal ruled out.
Well, Leonardo was pretty clear. He spoke of advanced talks to move him on. I don't know. I mean, we're going to look into this, but it seems bizarre when you wonder where is he going to fit in. Is this something that's well thought out? Why haven't other people bitten, perhaps in the Premier League when the market, when the transfer window was still open? Normally, when you go to this extreme, you're pretty sure you have a pathway out. And you look at Real Madrid, you look at Barcelona, and you wonder, where does he fit? And does this make any kind of sense given the players who are there already?
Who does it make more sense for, guys? Real Madrid or Barcelona? Who should push harder?
Well, you could play him on the other side if you're Real Madrid.
Right.
I mean, it's really difficult because we're talking about a guy who actually, if we get rid of the being unprofessional and all that stuff, is one of the best players on the planet. So it's kind of hard to try and say there's not a place for him. But put it this way, if Real Madrid or Barcelona don't get him, then they'll still be fine.
Gab, who are they more advanced with, Real Madrid or Barcelona? Do we know?
Well, the thinking is that it's probably Real Madrid for the simple reason that Barcelona, I think financially are a little tight. Remember, they spent 120 million on Griezmann. They spent money on De Jong, and also fitting Griezmann, Suarez, Lionel Messi, and Neymar into the same team, let alone Coutinho and Dembele and all those other guys, is difficult. As Stevie said, you could go and stick him on the other flank. Sorry, Vinicius, go sit on the bench and go for it that way. But equally, Real Madrid have also made some big investments this summer. They're still stuck with some very high wage earners that they can't get rid of. Wink, wink, Bale, James. So I don't know. Certainly a move like this, at the numbers that are being talked about, we're talking 200 million euros here, plus the wage commitments, which means you're looking at an outlay of round about $500 million over the next 4 years between wages and fees. That's like a millstone around a club's neck. And one thing, if you're Real Madrid, one thing you know all too well is the pain that massive contracts can cause you when you're trying to build a team and go forward.
Craig, say this doesn't happen, those banners today were pretty nasty, pretty vicious against Neymar from the fans. From a professional point of view, can you just kind of forget about it, go and play your game, or is there part of you going, you know what? If you're saying those things to me, why should I go out and give everything?
You still
to you on
have
the
to.
pitch?
The answer is you can go and play your game, but show me somebody that won't affect mentally. If somebody says to me that does not affect me at all, I would say the chances are they're telling lies. Because it has to affect you. In some sense, he's kind of brought all this on himself. Just to go back to that, I think Real Madrid's need is more. I can only imagine that they think if they can make it happen, that they believe they're going to get a couple of players out, at least one, maybe two players out. But Gareth Bale, and Gab mentioned Bale, and his agent have shown no desire to do anything other than when it's on their terms. Mm-hmm. So this is very strong from PSG, and I think Neymar needs it to happen. Sorry, Gab, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think if it's Real Madrid, that they have to have players going out the other way. Obviously, there's a pathway for James to Napoli that's been talked about. There's been talk about Luka Modric maybe going the other way in part exchange to Paris Saint-Germain. But equally, remember, even though Paris Saint-Germain will be getting these enormous wages off their bill, this is a team that has financial fair play issues as well to contend with, as we saw last season. So it's not something where you're necessarily doing PSG a favor if you're sending older veteran players back the other way. It seems very, very complicated. The clock is ticking. It just seems extraordinary to me how we've gotten ourselves into this situation.
Dan, you worked in Madrid for how long?
5 years.
5 years.
How's this going?
How would Real Madrid fans feel if a guy who, number one, played with Barcelona, two, all he talked about was leaving PSG to go to Barcelona, and all of a sudden goes to Real Madrid? How do they feel?
I think if he's got that quality, you don't care, do you? If he makes the team better, Neymar does. As you say, away from all the shenanigans, he's an awesome player.
Just briefly, the bigger story in all of this is the fact that this guy has to get his career back on track.
Definitely.
And get all this circus away.
And it seems it has to be away from PSG.
And it has to be soon.
Just a reminder, of course, that transfer window closes at the end of the summer. You can check out YouTube as Extra Time. That brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you.
Right, we're off and running, aren't we? Like, league started.
Yeah.
Still got a bit of transfer window to go with the European teams.
Excited.
He's excited.
That's what happened to you all for 5 weeks, was it?
A bit more financial fair play thrown in from Gab somewhere along the line.
Hey, he's basically
Neymar.
Away. He's been talking to the dog.
Really?
Aye, he can't shut him up there.
Poor Barney. All right, thank you very much to Craig and Stevie and to Gab as well. We'll be back tomorrow for more of this. Stay tuned for Extra Time. Welcome into Extra Time. Thank you very much for your tweets. It's the 6th anniversary of ESPN FC today. In this format?
Well, yeah, in that format.
Yeah. What a 6 years, eh?
What about the old format?
Press pass? I'm sure that goes back a long way, doesn't it? That's before my time. That's before your time?
No.
Yeah? Before Shaka? You must have bits and pieces.
I was there pretty early doors.
Yeah?
Behind the bins. We used to get in behind the bins.
Really?
Aye.
Nothing's changed.
It's like 6:30 in the
I remember
morning.
when you used to do the show, you used to do it with shorts on. Like when I first met you, you'd come in and have a suit here and then just...
This is shorts, aye, but...
The essence has not changed.
No, early doors, we were in the other studio behind the bins. We had to go through the bins to get in the studio.
Wow.
At 6:30 in the morning.
All right.
Because you're an early person, aren't you?
Well, I was good at that, getting up early.
Biggest disappointment. Well, Gab, how was your holiday, by the way? Where did you go?
I was at our summer house up in the Alps on the border between Italy and Switzerland. And FYI, it's not over. It's not how was, because I'm heading back there tomorrow and enjoying a couple more days before. Just to be clear,
Whose summer house is it?
it's my summer house. It's my family's summer house.
Oh, big time, eh?
Money, money, money.
So you just came back for this weekend, Gab, just to be with us.
I came back because I knew Craig had a very long holiday,
Yeah.
and I missed him, and I just wanted to make sure that I came back and got my dose of Craig before I went away again.
Biggest disappointment and surprise of the first weekend of the Premier League?
Tell you what it was for me. Watford.
Oh, a serious answer.
Yeah. Javi Gracia did a great job last year. They were very strong, got to the FA Cup final, gave a lot of teams lots of problems, and then lost at home match day 1 to Brighton and Hove Albion.
Properly lost as well.
3-0. That was a surprise.
Biggest disappointment was me was people in England acting like they'd never seen VAR before or a completely new concept of it. What's wrong with them, Gab? World Cup, Champions League, it's nothing new.
It's all the same crap over and over again. You know what really, really gets me? I'm having a go at you guys, but when you've got ex-pros on who are co-commentators, and they'll see a decision and they'll be like, well, not for me, or that shouldn't be a foul. Rather than judging based on what the laws actually are right now, whether you like them or not, they do it based on their own interpretation. Or when they go off and say like, well, they should have a challenge system, or it should be like cricket and rugby, and that's a different sports. You've seen this before. You know what it is. You may like it, you may dislike it, but goodness me, come up with new arguments.
The same people moaning and say, honestly, the one that gets, the handball one's always going to be subjective. The one that gets me is the offside. Well, it was tight. It don't matter if it was tight. He's either on or he's off.
Yep.
It's crystal clear. It's the same people moaning all the time.
Craig.
Yeah?
Craig, it gets even better. A good friend and colleague of mine, actually, is so wound up by the offside that he calculated the average velocity of the average Premier League player, juxtaposed it with the amount of frames per second that those Ultra HD cameras have to try to prove that it might be millimeters, but there's still a margin of error that might be 2 or 3 millimeters. And he went on this whole thing about it on Twitter. He got all scientific. But the point is, even if there is a margin of error, surely the margin of error will be less for all this machinery than it is for a human referee who has to look across the line and has to look 30 yards back up the pitch to figure out exactly at what point the pass was made.
It's ruining the game.
Is that not a rational way to think? I think normal people think exactly how Gab just put it there.
Yeah. But just people, some are Luddites, and it seems to be, a lot of them are English, aren't they?
VAR's ruining the game. You know what's ruining the game? You know what's ruining the game? And not just in England. Is Man City and Liverpool pummeling all these other teams? Is nobody so far been able to challenge Juventus for all those titles? Is Bayern Munich's dominance of the... That's more effective of the game. And all these PSG and France could go Celtic dominating in Scotland for the last 9 years. They've gone for the 10th title. All those things have got a bigger detriment to the game than people moaning about VAR.
Next question. How did you know when it was time to retire?
When your dad tells you.
Did your dad tell you?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, it was Scotland.
Right.
That was my 46th cap for Scotland. And it wasn't a particularly good one.
Who was it against?
Austria.
And where were you playing? What was your role?
I just come back from injury. What was my role?
Where were you playing?
Middle of the park.
You're in, and how much for that?
I was supposed to be directing the traffic, and in fact, I was supposed to be directing the traffic, but I played the part of a traffic cone. But I was in my 30s, and I kept coming back from injury, and I went upstairs after the game to the lounge where all the families were as usual at Hampden Park, and my dad said to me, "Time to give it up."
That's what he said.
Yeah.
And did you say yeah?
I said, I agree. Because you know.
Yeah.
You kind of know. Maybe don't want to know, but you know.
Did you force it, Stevie? Did you have that light bulb moment, or did you try and keep going?
No, I started kicking people.
Right.
It was when I came over to America, actually, because I was still playing. I was a player coach. And And because I was far more experienced and savvy, then I could do it on the sly without referees knowing that I was just being cynical. And I did it one day. I just lined this guy up, and I caught him somewhere between his groin and his knee.
Okay.
And after the game, I thought to myself, what are you doing?
Right.
You know, because I don't want to be remembered as some guy going around just doing people. So that's why I stopped.
Did any of you ever joke around with opposing players during matches? Or was it all business?
Not particularly, no. I mean, I played against a few mates of mine, north and south of the border, and I kicked them up and down the park, same as everybody else. But, you know, I might have a quick word with them before the game. It would be a quick one. But I'd always have a beer with them after the game.
Right.
But not during. Well, obviously not having a beer during, but I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be friendly with them during the game. No.
Not before, not during, but after.
That's changed now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we would. If Ronnie Moran caught you talking to one of the opposition, he'd be like, what are you talking to him for? I mean, it was like they were paranoid.
Right.
So you just didn't do it.
But now everyone's hugging.
Well, I mean,
Oh my God, everybody's like, they're all smiling. And see, that's the other thing. If we lost a game and he saw you smiling, the first thing he would do is he'd walk in, he'd go, oh, you smiling at? Did you see how you played today? And you're smiling. I mean, you would...
Well, that must make you feel about that small.
Oh, well, you just get your head down. You just get your head down. Don't.
But when I mean talking to people before, I don't mean talking before the game. It would only be in the tunnel. But it would only be like a nod or something.
Right, there wouldn't be a hug or a...
No, it'd be like, right. You might be stood in the tunnel and they walk up next to you to come out, and you might just nod.
Yeah.
And that's it. Hey, I'm not changing a tackle or a header or a challenge or whatever for a mate.
I actually kicked Alan Brazil once because I thought he was taking advantage. Because him and I got on really well. We played in the... He was one of the older players in the under-21s and the whole thing.
When he was slightly smaller.
Aye. It was a little lighter then. But he did something, and I thought he was taking advantage of the friendship.
Right.
So the next time he came near me and we went for the ball, I just rattled him.
Just to make sure.
Just to let him know that it wasn't happening.
My question is for Stevie. How well would Craig perform as a manager? Should Chelsea consider him?
I just have no interest in it.
No.
I mean,
It's not happening. You've got to be a certain way.
Oh, steady on.
Well, you've got to be a certain way.
Well, how do you know I wouldn't be?
Well, there has to be... I mean, you're talking about almost a 50-50 give and take.
Yes.
You're not a 50-50 give and take, man.
I am.
You're a 90-10, man.
How do you... And give me some examples.
Well, I'm trying to think of the 10.
What do you mean give and take?
Give me some examples. I'm trying to think of the 10.
Hold on. I've got to get this right here. Give and take in what sense?
Oh, sure, we're the highway, innit?
No.
And if it's not, it's not right. 90% of the time.
Why? That's opinion.
Well, that's what you asked. I just told you that.
No, but that's different from dealing with players.
Well, his question was, what if he was a coach, how would it be? But you can't be 90-10 if you're a coach. Otherwise, you'd be falling out with everybody all the time. I mean, I know that is just not you falling out with people.
Oh, it's like mum and dad arguing. This is awkward.
He's underestimating my ability to keep it in check. If I had to.
Keep it in check.
Final question.
Hold on a second. Gab, I heard you laughing there. What were you laughing at?
I was actually thinking exactly what Dan says. It is like mum and dad arguing, and you're sitting there in the back of the car, and you're really, really uncomfortable, and you kind of have a little giggle. And then when Dan said that, I'm like, yep, that's exactly what it's like.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
Gab, what would be your...
I'll let Dan handle the transition here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going straight to it. Worse with you. Right, what would be your dream semi-final of Champions League for this season, Gab? Dream.
Oh, goodness, you're going to spring
Dream,
this on me.
His dream is going to be like... what's that?
Are you going hipster?
Like Poznan someday against...
Are they still going?
I don't know.
Yeah,
But are they actually still?
I rarely get called a hipster, but I'd like to see, just in terms of storyline, I think it would be fantastic, but absolutely fantastic, if Jose Mourinho somehow, just for stories, somehow came back, maybe takes over from Valverde in mid-season, and along the way to the Champions League final, beats Chelsea and Real Madrid and Inter Milan as well, and then runs into Pep in the final. That would do it for me.
We'll end on that note. Thank you very much.
That's pretty good.
No, all right, Gab.
Isn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
It's not bad off the top of your head, by the way.
Not
Jose
bad.
Mourinho's Barcelona, come on.
Yeah.
Taking on Pep Guardiola's Manchester City in the Champions League final.
Istanbul.
That'd be good.
Istanbul in the next year. Right, that's it.
In
Thank you very
Istanbul,
much.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
There's a big game this week, isn't there?
Yes, it's the Super Cup,
see a bit.
which is in Istanbul, isn't it?
I say big. I was just
It's a non-event.
throwing it out there.
A non-event.
Non-event. It's no MLS All-Stars.
It's no MLS All-Stars.
There you
correct.
go. Right. Thanks, Steve and Craigie. Thanks to Gab as well. ESPN FC.